Now, I want to talk to you about cannabis. Now, you would have heard of Dr. Brain Walker, who is the newest member of Parliament. He represents the Legalised Cannabis Party, and he's one of the newest MPs up in the upper house. And so he got into Parliament basically on the platform of legalising cannabis, and that was something that he said his party would try to do when they got into state parliament. But it might surprise you to hear that they're actually talking about a more moderate approach to begin with, at least. Now, tomorrow, one of their upper house MPs, as I mentioned, Dr. Brain Walker, will propose an amendment to the Misuse of Drugs Act. Now, I don't want you to automatically assume that you'll disagree with him. I actually think you need to have a listen to what he has to say and then tell me what you think, because this is probably not what you would have initially expected from this party. Thank you very much for joining me, Dr. Brain Walker. Good morning.
Good morning, Nadia. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. What are you seeking to change?
Well, we're seeking to right an injustice.
Can you expand on that, please?
Well, currently as it stands, if someone has grown cannabis for their own purposes, it's very easy to find them guilty of being a drug trafficker based on the current legislation. And that is manifestly unjust, because then you're exposed to a whole host of consequences which are manifestly not what the original framers of the legislation dreamed of. So this needs to be amended. At the moment, it's such that the courts are obliged to treat someone as a trafficker if the conditions have been fulfilled, and that means their hands are tied, and we simply want to reverse that.
Okay, so how would you reverse that? What do you want to change exactly?
Well, what we simply want to change is one simple line in that. There's a whole stack of things. Wayne Martin, the eminent Wayne Martin, put out 60 or 68 recommendations. It's a far greater mind than I could possess. And this is simply one of them, which says that the courts are not required to declare the person to be a drug trafficker. If the court is satisfied that that's clearly unjust to do so. And that's a simple change we want to have made. Okay,
so you want to change the way you measure the amount of cannabis?
Well, at the moment, no. We'd love to do that, but that's asking... We need to rewrite the whole Act, and that's a big ask. And it takes a lot of time to do that. This is a simple thing here, though. At the very moment, if the DPP has determined that this is a drug trafficker, then the court's hands are tied, and we simply want to change that. Currently, the police, when they will raid someone's home, they can dig up the plants in the garden, and they'll weigh it, and they'll weigh it with the soil attached, with the water in the soil. Now, we only use, if we're going to use the drug for illegal smoking, a bad thing to do, by the way, if we're going to do that, then we're taking a small fraction of that plant. But no, the whole plant and the soil, half the garden is weighed. And that is then added to the total, and now you're declared to be a trafficker. So when the judge sees this, he's not able to say, no, he's not. He's obliged to say, okay, you're a trafficker. Therefore,
because he's looking at the weight. He's looking at, because the weight yes. is what determines.
Yes. Now, we can't change that. What we can do is give the court permission, return to the court the right to make its own mind up.
Right. So then the judge can say, okay, well, you have what is deemed a trafficable amount. So you have a particular amount of cannabis, and therefore, under the law, that means that because you have so much, you are deemed a drug trafficker. But you want to be able to give that judge the ability to say, but looking at you, your history, I don't think you are a drug trafficker, so therefore I'm not going to deem you as one.
Exactly so. At the moment, the court's hands are tied, and that, I think, is unfair. We've got eminent people in court who are very well able to make a decision on the law and also the social situation, and use their own eyes and ears to make a decision rather than being bound by an arbitrary measure which doesn't actually reflect the truth of the situation. And simply allowing the courts to decide is, I think, just natural justice occurring again.
Okay, Dr.
Returning a right to the court.
Dr. Brain Walker is my guest. He's an upper house MP for the Legalised Cannabis Party, and I just wonder what what you think about this. 1300 222 720. Should we give judges more freedom to decide if someone is a drug trafficker or not if they are caught with cannabis? We're only talking about cannabis here. I think we need to make that very important. How many people are there you think that are deemed drug traffickers that you don't think are drug traffickers? I mean, do you have any statistics?
Well, it's interesting that because once the laws were applied, the numbers, the increase in the application for drug traffickers went up 9 times, and that's mostly for cannabis. So it's been applied unfairly to cannabis growers. I found that statistic fascinating, actually, and also terrifying.
Okay, so what's the weight that deems you a drug trafficker? How much do you have to have?
Anything above 3 kilos of plant is deemed to be drug trafficking. What we would like to see in the future, but we're not amending that right now, is 3 kilos of the usable drug, not the soil.
Right,
but at
so
the moment,
you just take the flower or the bit that you can smoke or use.
Yes.
But how do you know how many of those people that have been deemed drug traffickers and convicted because they had more than 3 kilos of cannabis are not drug traffickers? How do you know?
Well, this is really in the purview of the courts to decide. They will know what's going on. For example, if you are growing cannabis in your backyard and you share it with your neighbour, are you a drug trafficker? If you're actually having cars coming to your home and buying little packs of cannabis, then you probably are a drug trafficker. So it really very much depends not on the amount of plants, but the behaviour around that. But that I can't decide. That has to be the courts to decide.
Okay, so you seem to be because ultimately your goal is to legalise cannabis, which this government and previous governments have never had any appetite for.
Oh, they have.
Oh, well, no, actually, yes. No, they did.
Party,
yes, Jeff Gallop did for a very, very small amount of time.
Yes, and it's still a state Labour Party policy as well.
So how what is the likelihood, do you think, that this could happen one day?
Oh, it will happen one day. That's inevitable. I mean, it's quite clear. I mean, we've got a healthy healing herb which can be misused. People. We've got another substance, alcohol, which kills 6,000 people a year. I mean, I have no trouble with that. In my inaugural speech, I mentioned that you could take a whole bottle of the cannabis with THC and you have an expensive sleep. But you can buy a packet of Panadol, maybe 2, swallow that, it will kill you. We have no trouble selling you Panadol, but we have a lot of trouble selling you cannabis. This makes no logical sense. That does it.
Well, we'll wait and see. But thank you very much, Dr Brain Walker, Upper House MP for legalised cannabis. My guest this morning on Mornings. It's 9:19. What do you think? 1300 222 720. Let's take some of your calls. Billy, hi. You heard Brain Walker there. Yeah. What do you think?
What I think is actually everyone who planted 10, 20, 30 trees, they are selling for it. That's a common sense. Everyone knows that. You don't plant one. If you have one fair point, you can say that person's personal use, but you're planting as much as you want. So I don't know where this idea of this member of parliament have, but there is no way. And I agree with the courts. They should be punishing them as drug dealers. That's straightforward.
Thank you very much for that, Billy. Billy saying, look, if you grow multiple plants, how can you be anything except a drug dealer? Chris. Hi, Chris.
Oh, good morning. No, I missed a little bit of what the politician had to say. I'm hoping that he was talking about the fact as well. It's not just the quantity of a drug that can make you a drug trafficker, but even 3 very minor convictions, say, for possessing a few dollars worth of cannabis. Once you've got 3 convictions, the court must declare you a drug trafficker. Doesn't have any option not to.
Right, so he hadn't mentioned that, Chris, no.
No.
So he's saying in the first instance, allow a judge to use discretion and say, look, even though you've got over 3 kilos and you are under the law technically a drug trafficker, I don't believe you are. So I can use my discretion to not class you as a drug trafficker and then down the track change the way you measure it and just measure the usable quantity, not the whole plant.
Exactly, and I'm hoping it's just a simple change to the act that's proposed, which would replace the word must make a declaration with may make a declaration. That then puts the power back into the court's hands.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Okay. Are you a lawyer, Chris? You seem to know a bit about this. Okay, good on you. Thank you for that. Hi, Diane.
Hello?
Hello, Diane. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I just think that cannabis should be legalised. It can help you to sleep instead of taking addictive drugs like temazepam or diazepam or any of those others, and it also helps with pain. It kind of blocks the pain. It should be legal, and I agree with what he said about weighing it. It should be weighed by just the heads, not the whole plant.
Thank you very much, Diane, on the text. Susie says, just legalise the dang thing. Obviously, this part needs to be fixed first. John says, the whole cannabis issue needs a thorough overhaul. We are lagging behind more enlightened countries and people are being prosecuted for breaking laws that are draconian and should not exist. And Gary says, don't be so confrontational, Nadia. It is Australia's most used recreational drug with least harm and no reason to fill jails with users. I'm sad you've had to adopt this I'm disgusted approach. I don't think I've adopted any approach, Gary. I'm just asking questions and I appreciate your opinion and thank you so much for taking the time to contact me. Paul says, Dr. Brain is one of the most calm and kind voices I've ever heard on the radio. And Linda says, Panadol doesn't affect your driving. Cannabis does. Doug, what do you think? Hello, Doug. Are you there?
Yes, I have got you.
Hi, Doug. What do you think?
Well, look, Diane had it nailed pain-wise. My brother's got severe scoliosis and he smokes it rather than taking opioids and he's much better for it. And the fact that the law can put you in jail for soils rather than the actual heads of a plant, that's just bloody ridiculous. I'm sorry, but it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, and I didn't realise that, Doug. I'm learning a little bit about this morning. Thank you very much.